Hello, my friends. And surprise, we have a guest in the studio today. Don Powers is here. Don's a longtime family friend, was friends with my brother umpteenth number of years ago, and has been around most of my Luthier career that I can remember anyway. I wanted to welcome you to the 40th anniversary party, and it's going to be much more than that, I promise you. So, I'll just warn you ahead of time. The odds are we won't get to a whole lot of the today's questions. So if you're putting questions or comments in the comment section of today's video, there's a good chance we won't get to them because this is going to be a long one. I'll warn you up front. I'm going to be rambling, and there's a whole lot of stories to tell and a whole lot of things to show. I have a whole bunch of instruments I want to show you, and lots more, and maybe even an announcement or two. I'm going to start off subject for a minute, though, and just do a little, not exactly housekeeping, but just a little off chore things here, or a little off, I don't know, off subject things. I've got this bandsaw blade. This just came in, and I thought I'd show it to you. It's got carbide teeth on it. I don't know if those will show up in the video or not. I think it does. It's got carbide teeth. I bought this for a resaw bandsaw blade for my regular bandsaw inside here. And those of you who have been following my vlogs and have seen those quarter saw pieces of walnut that I've quarter sawn, I needed a better blade to resaw them again on my inside bandsaw. And so that's what this is for. And I think it's going to be really helpful down the road. Another thing, and I know this was one of the questions from yesterday's videos, was how do I vibrate my hands? And I thought I'd show you this. And you turn it on first, so now you can see the LEDs are on probably. And then I can dial up the intensity. I take it all the way to the top. I go to 9. And then I just vibrate my hands like this. And it's not a bad thing to do right now because I do plan to play a few of these instruments for you. and actually, my right hand's the one I need to vibrate the most. It's the one holding the pick. It's the one that hurts the worst whenever I try to play. So this is all I do, and I do it for like 10-15 minutes. I did add this to the products I use page on my website in case you're interested and would like to have one. This works really good, and it's economical. This one's only $19.95, and honestly, it's worth its weight in gold to me because it really does relax my hands. Okay, moving on from there, what's the next thing I want to tell you about? We've got 93,666 subscribers. I'm not sure I like those last three numbers, but but that's what we have as of this morning. Yesterday, Don and I were busy cutting cedar logs, and we cut, well, I think we only cut 2 more logs, but we ended up getting 18 2x4s out of those 2 logs, which is pretty good for, I mean, these are little bitty logs, so I was amazed we got 18 2x4s out of them. The last thing, well, I think that's it as far as the off-subject topics this morning. And if you want to know what the real subject is, it's just about reflecting on 40 years as a luthier. And maybe even as a musician, even back further than that. And that's where we're going to start this morning. We're going to start with the very first instrument that I had. I've shown this before. This is just an old Silvertone electric guitar, single pickup, still plays, still works on the amplifier if I wanted to get the amp out and play it, but I don't and I'm not going to. But I painted it red when I was just a teenager. The only instrument I had before this was a plastic Roy Rogers guitar when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. There is a picture of me floating around somewhere in the family of me holding that plastic guitar. I don't happen to have a copy of it, or I couldn't find a copy of it anyway. I would have loved to shown you that this morning because it looked like a really neat guitar. It wasn't a little tiny plastic guitar. It was one of the full-size, or at least it appeared to be a full-size plastic guitar. It was hanging around my neck, and it covered up my whole body, you know. But otherwise, this is the very first real guitar I ever owned. My dad bought this at a pawn shop, and it was kind of he called it a gourd green is what it was. And I think you can still find them out on the internet. If you look this up, you'll still see that it's out there. I forgot the name of it now. I should have remembered that. I should have wrote it down. But it's silver tone. I think it's called Stratotone or something like that. Can't remember. Anyway, would you mind just,
Sure.
There's a case way over there. You could just, that little tiny case, you could just set it in there. Just trying to get a few things out of the way because I've got so much here to show you today. After that, let's see, the next guitar that I owned.
You should have shown the case.
Yeah, I should have shown the case. That case is pretty cool.
Antique.
Yeah, it is an antique case for that little electric guitar. This was the very first guitar that I bought with my own money. This was it's a Gibson Jubilee. I'm pretty sure I either bought it in 1968 or 1969, and I think it was 1969. It's got an okay sound, but it's got that dreaded adjustable bridge on it, but as I never play it, I never bothered to change it. This has just been hanging on the wall for years. So it's a decent little guitar, but it isn't much.
Nothing wrong with the sound of that.
No, it's an okay guitar, really. It's got a decent sound. We got 123 viewers at the moment, according to this, but I've found out that count doesn't work just right anyway. So it can jump up real high in the next second, or it can drop in the next second. So I'm not too sure about that count. Let's see, where do I want to go after that? Oh, you just go ahead and have a seat. No, just go ahead.
I'll be right away.
No, you're not. You're not going to be in the way.
Too big not to be in the way.
No, you won't be in the way. Just sit down. Just have a seat. Let's see. Where's the next thing? I'm trying to decide what the next instrument to show you would be, and I guess it is starting with the instruments I built now. Before I tell you about this instrument, this is what kind of started it all. I need to clarify something. I've told this before in previous videos, I'm sure, that the date in this instrument was the date I consider starting my business. Well, it turned out I lied. You know, I mean, I just lied. That's all there is to it, and I didn't intentionally lie, but I did. The date of this instrument is today's date, May 19th, but it's 1984, not 1983. Now, all my stationery, all my signs, and everything say 1983. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, well, why did I say my business started in 83? Well, the truth of it is that I did actually start making the deer antler saddles in 1983. I made them for my own instrument, and people saw them and liked them, and then I started making those saddles for other people. So technically, my business did start in 1983, but it didn't really take off until I built this mandolin. And then people started handing me instruments. Could you fix this? Can you fix that? You know, and it just snowballed from there. But I just wanted to clarify that so to let you know that the date of this is actually 1984, and it's May 19th, 1984. So I don't really have an actual starting date in 1983. I just know I started in 83, but I just figured that May 19th is kind of the significant date. Let me see here if this will play. Can my fingers play is the problem. And I'll read you what I have written down about this mandolin. It's a Obviously, F-style mandolin, Western cedar top, bird's eye back and sides, walnut veneer peg head. So the veneer on the peg head is walnut, and there's a walnut strip down the back of the neck. And this was the one that started everything. Let me tell you something, that bird's eye maple is hard to carve. It's really hard to carve, hard on your fingers. When I made this mandolin, and this kind of ties back to one of the questions today from yesterday's video said, I want to start building mandolins. What are the minimum tools I needed? Well, when I built this, I had the minimum tools. And the only tool that I had, power tool that I had, was a bandsaw. That was it. And it was vital. I needed a bandsaw. In fact, I bought the bandsaw to help build this. In my opinion, you do need a bandsaw. Maybe you don't. I mean, you can get by without it with hand saws and scroll saws and all kinds of things. But a bandsaw is really nice. You got to have finger planes. So if you're going to hand carve them, now you don't have to hand carve them. You can sand them out. People do that, and I don't feel like you can be nearly as accurate though with just like a disc sander. People just do that, and they'll carve the inside with a disc sander, carve the outside with a disc sander, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's where you want to be, But me personally, I wanted to get down to that thousandth of an inch and really be able to know the thicknesses everywhere, and it's much easier to do that when you're doing that with a tiny finger plane and then scrapers and things like that. So those are kind of like your minimum tools you're going to need, in my opinion. But anyway, that's number one right there. That's where it all got really started, or this is what really kicked it off. Let me see here. I have these ones highlighted. I have these out of order. What the problem is, I found out there's a problem with my list. This is a list of all the instruments that I've built. And there's some problems with some of my early dates and things, because I found it this morning. I didn't even realize it. But my next instrument that I built was a very similar mandolin, but let's see. Is this it? No, okay, yeah, this is the second one I built, and it's almost like the first one. The first one, probably the biggest difference, the first one's got a straight point here. It's very straight on the bottom. The second one's a little bit more curved, not much more. The second one's carved a little bit nicer in the back around the scroll, you can see. So I did improve a few things. This one's also made out of bird's eye maple, but the difference is this one has a redwood top. And I really, like I said, with Western cedar, which is the first one, and redwood on the second one, you can't build a bad instrument with those two woods. A lot of people hear this mandolin and they say, this is the only mandolin you should be playing. Let me tell you a little quick couple backstories on this mandolin. When I first built it, it was crazy, crazy loud. It is still pretty darn loud, but it was crazy loud before. And I say before, and that is before it got ran over with a car. It got ran over. My wife was helping me pack for a festival, I think, or no, maybe I don't remember. Maybe going out of town or something. I was just taking the mandolin with me. I think I was going on a business trip. And in fact, she ran over this and an $8,000 laptop, all in one fell swoop. She put it behind the van, and then I backed up, yeah, I guess I did the backing up, or maybe she did. She did, because she came in with a white look on her face, and she was just all upset. And it cracked the top of this mandolin in 7 places. But fortunately, I had it in one of those cases that I build, which was really very strong and very heavy road case. and it only cracked it. It didn't bust it. It was still playable. In fact, I played it for another several years with 7 cracks going down the top, and you couldn't hardly tell the difference other than the sound wasn't quite as loud. But I did repair it later, and I completely fixed it, and you couldn't see any cracks in it at all. And then, would you not know, about a week after I repaired it, the case fell shut, and there was something in the way, and it cracked the mandolin right there again. I've never bothered to fix that crack. I guess it's just supposed to be a cracked mandolin. But one of the other cool stories that I had about this, there used to be bluegrass festivals at Grassy, Missouri. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
At Grassy, Missouri?
I knew the guy that put those on.
Yeah, well, Don, my uncle actually started them, Don Brown. He was the first guy that started a festival there. And then there was the park owners that I sort of knew, but I didn't really know who they were that well. But anyway, my uncle started those festivals down in Grassy, Missouri years and years ago. And people knew me, I kind of associated to Don mostly, and the fact that I built my own instruments even back then. And I went up, so when I got there that morning, I got there early, I think on a Saturday morning or something, and I saw friends at the gate that were jamming. So I jumped out and started jamming with them. I didn't even drive into the festival. I just stopped right there and started jamming. Well, then about noon, now that was early in the morning, like 9 in the morning. Well, about noon, I went up to the cooking shack, which was, I don't know, 200 yards from there, 150 yards at least. And, you know, there's campers all in between and people jamming, and the stage is not far from the cookhouse. And when I ordered my hamburger, the lady says, "I know exactly when you got here." And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You got here at 9:30 this morning, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, I've been in this cook shack the whole time, and I could hear that mandolin all the way down at the gate, and it was over everything else."
It's like the other night at Dickey's. I went to Dickey's, and this isn't good, but I went to the bathroom, and the only thing I could hear in the bathroom was Jerry chop on the mandolin.
Well, I do say one thing about it. My mandolins are loud. That's the one thing I do claim about them. And that was because I built them off of my Uncle Don's mandolin, the pattern there. Well, technically, this one wasn't built off of that one. This one was before I took Don's mandolin apart. But this one just happened to be loud. I don't know why. But the one you heard, it is a copy of Don's. And Don's lower mandolin was one of the loudest Lloyd lower mandolins ever. I mean, it was a crazy loud mandolin. Well, anyway, that's the stories I have on that one. It just was destined to be cracked, and it's still cracked. And
Having been on both sides of the camera, I watch every Jerry's video made, and the camera's good, but they just don't show how pretty these things are in person.
Well, let's see. What's the next one? Oh, okay. I think the next. No, you stay right there. Don't move. The next one is. I've got this all planned out. The next one is the guitar. Now, right after I built those 2 mandolins, I had orders for building 2 12-string guitars from people that I worked with. And I had never even built a guitar yet, and they just definitely wanted me to build them 2 12-string guitars. 2 different people didn't know each other. And so I said, okay, I'll build you 12-string guitars, but I've got to build myself a guitar first. So I took a week's vacation from Southwestern Bell, and I built this guitar in 1 week, start to finish, even including the finish. And I've never changed anything about it since. But the story on this one was, you know, I put an oil varnish on it, and I was brushing the oil varnish on it, and some of you have heard me tell this before, but I had it hanging on a hook behind me, and the oil varnish was around here, so I reached around to get some more, and I heard this thing hit the ground and went kapow, and it was on its way back up, and I turned around and grabbed it by the neck and you know, saved it from falling again, and that cracked it right through here, cracked it right through there, and you know, that's pretty much it, I guess. It may have loosened a couple of these braces, because I found out later, just recently, I just repaired the top on this, and there were several braces that were loose too. So it probably knocked them braces loose. But this guitar, for whatever reason, people just hear it in the studio when I had my recording studio, and they always wanted to record with this guitar. They would say, oh, wow, can I just use that guitar to record with, you know? And they would record with it. So it's got a nice sound, and it's Padauk back and sides, redwood top, and that's about it. Curly maple peg head there that and it's everything's made from scratch. I don't, use any kits. I never have. I've never used any kits on any of my instruments except the very first commercial mandolin that I built and sold was a family that wanted to save some money, and I said, well, the only way I can help save you any money is if you buy a kit, I'll put a kit together for you. And so that's what I did. On the very first commercial mandolin owned by Eric Parent, and he still loves that mandolin. I mean, he really does love that mandolin, and I'm not kidding you. He wrote a song about me having built the mandolin, in fact, and had I been thinking ahead, I would have played that song for you, but I don't have it ready to play, so. Anyway, this is a really nice guitar for me. This one belongs to my daughter already. That very first mandolin, by the way, belongs to my son. This guitar belongs to my oldest child, my daughter Lisa. And that second mandolin is just in the family at the moment. I don't know who will end up with that. Okay, moving on here. Let's see. I'm not sure where I'm going with the next instrument. So I'm looking at all this. I've got some little highlights in the margins here too. The seventh instrument that I built and the third mandolin, it had a redwood top, a bird's eye back and sides. I had inlay abalone shell inlay all around the top on it, and a very fancy mandolin. In fact, it's the mandolin that's on my, it's in the Wind CD. If you've ever had that CD or seen that CD, or you can see that CD, the cover picture on my website on the songs that I sell. It shows the cover of that CD. And anyway, that mandolin, I played it for years on stage, and it was sold to Ryuji Takaji, I think, in Shibukawa City, Japan. So that was kind of cool. That was my first overseas sale, and that was right after the internet got going. And I sold it to him in the 90s. I built it in June of 90, it looks like here. Then I already told you about Eric Parent's kit mandolin that I built him. And then here's another significant one that's you're going to hear about more down the road is I built a mandolin. It was the seventh mandolin I built. At that time, I think it was the 11th instrument. I built it for Randy Allen. He has recently deceased. I say recently. He's been gone a while. He had a double lung transplant and a heart transplant. And he was in the hospital for forever. And he said the whole time he lay in that hospital, the only thing he could think about was owning one of my mandolins. And the day he got out of the hospital, he drove to my house and ordered a mandolin. And I built it for him. And he has since passed away, and his wife has had a stroke, and she's in a bad way, but she wants me to auction this mandolin off. So that mandolin is going to be coming back. I will probably do some work to that mandolin because I know there was some issues with it, and I will probably fix it up, and then we will auction it off to help out his widow. But that will be a while down the road. Then some more footnotes here. I made a mandolin that I played for years. It was my 14th mandolin at this point, and I sold it to Kitty Smazzle up in Minnesota, which I thought was, it was another fancy mandolin. It had a lot of the abalone shell inlay on it and everything. And then let's see, the number 15 mandolin went to Joe Dean of Doyle Lawson's band. And I started Joe playing bluegrass when he was 11 years old and taught him how to play the mandolin. And then he switched over to the banjo on his own. And of course, he played for Doyle Lawson for I don't know how many years, maybe almost 10 years, I guess. And so anyway, Joe owns one of my mandolins, and you've seen or heard that mandolin played on those on that album that's sold at the Cracker Barrel restaurants by Isaac and I can't think of all their names. I should have thought this out. The fellow that's crippled that's in the wheelchair that sings. Can't think of his name right now, but anyway, those guys got together, had a neat group, and really sounded great. And my mandolin that Joe owns was played on that CD. Joe loaned it to them to use because they liked the sound of it or whatever. Then let's see there's a mandolin here that I have a question mark by, and the reason is I don't have it here. I think my daughter owns it, my daughter Rochelle, I think. I'm not sure about who has this mandolin, but I just make a note on it that it was it had stars on the fingerboard. It was the very first mandolin that I built off of my Uncle Don's Lloyd Loar. So it was the 16th mandolin that I built, but it was the first one that I actually built after taking my Uncle Don's mandolin apart. And I don't know where that mandolin is. I really don't. I kind of think my daughter has it. Wow. Crazy. I do not know where that mandolin is. I was looking for it this morning. Then another significant one that I built was the 17th mandolin, the very next one, and I built it for Carmine D'Amico. And Carmine D'Amico was the guy who played the mandolin in the Godfather movies. Now, to be clear, he did not play my mandolin in the Godfather movies. He played that before he bought my mandolin. So anyway, but he did love this mandolin, and it was a custom 10-string mandolin. And Carmine had won something like 20-some Grammys for his playing, and he played with all kinds of big stars. He was a studio musician, and every single week for the first 2 years that he owned that mandolin, he would call me, and he would tell me how much he loved that mandolin every single week. And I'm not making that up. That was every week. And he would tell me who he was in the studio playing with. And it was people like Barbra Streisand and I don't know, it was just all kinds of people. You know, he would name names, and it was amazing who he was playing with. And he was often playing that mandolin on their albums. Let's see, moving on. Probably boring everybody to tears here. I built a fiddle. Well, let's see here. The next mandolin that I was going to show you. This one's a very unique mandolin. This one was the 20th mandolin that I built, and it was for Jenny Vaughn. No, I take it back. That's not this mandolin. Darn it. I jumped ahead a little bit. Anyway, I did build a mandolin for Jenny Vaughn. Jenny was a really good musician who ended up, she was 10 years old when I started her on mandolin as well. And then I ended up building her a mandolin, and then she took she got her family interested in playing. Her father played a long time ago, but she got him back into playing, and their whole family got interested in playing. And then they went to Silver Dollar City and won the single mic competition down there with bands coming in from all over the United States. So they were very good. And so Jenny does still have one of my mandolins. Then I'll jump ahead, and then I'll still tell you about this one. The next thing I built was a fiddle. I built that for Grace Caudill. Now, Grace is Emery's little sister, and you've seen Emery on the channel singing, and you've heard her songs on the channel in the background of a lot of my videos. And Emery is my daughter-in-law. She's married to my son, JR, and they live next door, and you've seen their channel, Homestead Horsemanship. So anyway, I built a fiddle and gave that one to Grace, Emery's sister. Then I built a guitar for my brother Scott, and I built this in 2004. So this was long before YouTube still, and he loved that guitar, or at least I thought he did. And he would always tell me how much people would always, every time he'd play it, he said people would ask him, "Where did you get that guitar? I love that sound," And anyway, now he's building his own guitars. So I guess he thinks he builds them better than me, I guess, is just what I'm supposing. And I don't doubt that he does, because he's very picky. But anyway, so now about this mandolin. I was telling you about Jenny Vaughn. Well, Jenny's little sister was only 2 years old when I built this. And if you look at this, you might think it's just the same as any other mandolin, but it's not. It's only a 3/4 size. Now, the peg head is the full size, but the neck, the fretboard, the body, everything on this is 3/4 size. It's very tiny. It's really hard for me to play it, but it's got a full sound just like a full-size mandolin. I scaled every single measurement to 90% of a full-size mandolin. And you might say, well, that's 90%, it's not a 3/4. Well, it works out, if you do the math, that a 3/4 violin is 90% of a full one. I did all the math on it and checked every way till sundown, and that's the way it worked out. So that's how I built this mandolin. I built it on a 90% scale of a full-size one, and that's, in my mind, that's considered to be a 3/4 size mandolin then. And of course, you can't buy 3/4 size tuning keys or anything like that, so I had to leave a full-size peg head, and I have a full-size tailpiece, but I cut the bridge down, and all the thicknesses and everything are 90% of the original, like my Don Brown's, my uncle's Lloyd Loar mandolin. So they're all 90%. So they're thinner in the same places by 90%. It's amazing. It was a lot of math and a lot of hard work to get this where it sounded like this. And another story on this, about this mandolin, I was at a bluegrass show. I don't think this was a festival. I think it was just a show. And Rhonda Vincent was playing. And we were just off in a room jamming, and some guy runs up to me, and I swear to you, and I'm not making this up, this guy was like he was out of breath, and he was in a panic. And he's going, "Are you Jerry Rosa?" He's like, just like that. I'm going, "Yeah." I'm just answering real calm, like, what's going on here? I mean, he's like in a panic. He's going, Are you Jerry Rosa?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, can you come with me right now?" I said, "Come with you where?" And he goes, "Rhonda Vincent wants to see you." I said, "Rhonda Vincent wants to see me?" She goes, "Yeah, she wants to see you right now." And I said, "Okay." So I started following the guy. Well, it turns out we're going backstage. Well, they got guards there. And I don't even have a ticket to the show. I just came there to jam with friends, out in the hallways. And this was at a big hotel thing. Well, anyway, long story short, the guard let me in. I go in there and I talk to Rhonda, and I explained to her, how much I'd have to build one of these. She wanted me to build her a 3/4 size, and she wanted to give it to a niece or someone like that. Now, had she wanted it for herself and was going to play it, I'd have probably worked out the best deal in the world. But under those circumstances, I just gave her my full price at the time. And at the time, the price for this was $2,500. And she felt that was just too much money. And I said, "Okay, sorry." I just didn't work the deal. So anyway, that's the story on that. But it's a really pretty little mandolin. It's got the full carving and everything. It's exactly like I build the full-size ones, just 3/4 size. My wife, what happened, the reason I got this back, I didn't tell you that, was the family, apparently we're under hard times, and we're selling everything that they own pretty much. And I went to their estate sale or whatever and bought this back. And that's how come I own it now again.
Well, there's somebody out there needing one of those.
A 3/4 size?
Yeah.
Yeah, there probably is. And I've actually had a lot of people want to buy it, and my wife doesn't want me to sell it
Oh.
because it's so unique.
Sorry I said that.
So there you go. What's your first memory of us together playing, and when did we meet and all that? Because I don't remember stuff. I can't remember.
First time you were standing on the corner of Grand and Euclid with the "I will work for food" sign.
Okay,
It was
yeah,
my corner.
I remember that.
And it was my corner. I run your ass off. We met through Scott, and boy, I'll be 80 next month, and that was 40 years ago. So this is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and he repaired my grandfather's fiddle. Had dry rotted apart, I guess you'd say, and Jerry put it all back together, and
Good.
it's still back together.
Well,
I
good.
don't play it, but
That's because I used Tite Bond
right.
instead of hide glue.
Yeah.
Had I used hide glue, you would be fixing it again, because they only last 30, 40 years, and then you got to fix them again when you use hide glue. And that's if it's perfect conditions, it'll last 30 or 40 years. Under non-perfect conditions, it'll last 10 years at most. Okay.
If I would have remembered this was your 40th, I'd have brought that down. too.
Yeah. Well, I didn't tell you ahead of time. So
Yeah.
there you go. And let's see. It seems like the first time I remember meeting you, I think we were maybe in Scott's apartment jamming or something. Or your apartment?
Or
Did
his
you have?
house? But you wouldn't have been in my.
I think it was an
too
apartment.
small.
I think it was an apartment.
Well, Scott lived upstairs from me in an apartment. It might have been his
Yeah,
apartment.
that's what I think it was. Now that
Yeah.
you say that, I think it was his apartments where I think I first met you. Okay, moving on here. Then I just have another little side note here that I built a mandolin. Bob Minner. I've known Bob since I started playing music. Bob Minner is the guitar player for Tim McGraw, and he played acoustic guitar for Tim McGraw pretty much from the beginning, and still does, as far as I know. And he also plays with Tim's wife. What's her name?
Don't ask me.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of her name right now. You know me and names. Very famous gal, though, and very pretty. But anyway, Bob called me one day, and he says, "Hey, Jerry, I want you to build me a mandolin." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So I built him a real fine, F-style mandolin. And then it took me a while to build it, as it always does. And when I called him and said, "Hey, I've got it done." Faith Hill is her name, and I wrote it down here. And that's the only reason I remembered it, because I have it written on the next page. Anyway, Bob had to back out on the mandolin because he had just got a deal on a pre-war Martin guitar of some sort. I forget what it was, a D35 or what it was. I don't remember, D18 probably. Anyway, he bought that old guitar. Thank you. He bought that old guitar, and he didn't have any money, and so I said, "All right, no problem, Bob." And so I just sold it to Leon Pruitt, who has been the banjo player in my band since 1991, and Leon still plays with us. He was there at the restaurant the other night when you were there.
Terrific player.
Yeah, he's a killer banjo player, just killer. And anyway, so I sold it to Leon, and then, if you remember, a year or two ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, whenever it was, then we auctioned that mandolin off, and it sold to a guy, I believe, in California, and I think it sold for $10,000, and that guy called me back and absolutely loved the mandolin. And it was one of the loudest mandolins I ever built, and it was one of the clearest tone mandolins I ever built. It was just killer. Bob Minner doesn't know what he missed on that one. He really doesn't. Anyway, moving on. Let's see here. Probably got these all out of order now. I'm gonna, let's see. The next one I have here, I think I may have that one here. It's mandolin number 26. I think it's this one right here. Let me look in there and make sure. Yep, this is the 26th mandolin. At this point, this was the 32nd instrument, and the 26 mandolin.
Beautiful color.
Now this one was an experimental mandolin. This was the first one that I built out of sycamore. I cut the sycamore tree down here, and you can see the pattern in it, I think. And the sad thing is that it had way more pattern before I stained it. You know, usually when you stain something, it brings the pattern out. It didn't on this. On the sycamore, the pattern went away. And I was so disappointed because this looked like, you know how book match things are, it looked like a rattlesnake pattern. It looked exactly like a rattlesnake diamond pattern on a diamondback rattlesnake. And I was going to call this the Rattler and the Rosebush mandolin. But when I stained it, that all went away. And you don't see what looks like a diamondback rattlesnake anymore. I don't know why. It just went away. But anyway, so I don't call it the Rattler and the Rosebush. But anyway, you can see the carving on it. And it was the very first sycamore mandolin I ever built. And I built this one on, I finished it on May 21st, 09. And that's another significant date, which is just another day or two from now. And it's the day my oldest grandson was born. I finished it on the day he was born. So I guess you know who's going to get this mandolin eventually. I really like the sycamore mandolins. I really do. I think they're great. Keep in mind, this hasn't been played for 5-6 years. It's just been sitting around. So the strings on it are very old, everything. But it's a really good sounding mandolin, I think. And then I've built quite a few more out of sycamore since. Let's see. Let me digress for a second. I was planning to show this early on, but probably around this time was when I acquired this. My grandfather passed away in October of 1989, I believe it was. And then you've all heard the song I wrote about it, Grandpa's Old Fiddle. And this was the fiddle. My grandmother called me to her house about 1 month after he passed away and gave me this fiddle. And then 1 month after that, on the very day that he passed away, at about the same time in the wee hours of the morning, I apparently woke up and wrote that song. And I say apparently because I don't remember writing the song. I literally the next morning when I woke up, I thought, did I write a song last night or did I dream I wrote a song last night? And I lay there in bed and I couldn't tell you which one was right. And I got up and I started walking through the house and I didn't see any sign where I'd written any song. You know, I go to my desk and things like that and nothing was there. I go through the house and on the dining room table of all places, which is a place we never go. I mean, like you never sit in the dining room table, you know, that's just there for Thanksgiving, right? That's your Thanksgiving table. That's the only time you ever use it. Well, on that table, all the words to the song were there. It's a really loud old fiddle. It is now. I actually took it apart and recarved it. It didn't have a whole lot of tone or anything, and I'm not a very good fiddle player, and it sounds much better than I can make it sound. But it definitely has a lot more volume and clarity now that after I took it apart and recarved it. I know Grandpa would be happy to have it back if he was around.
Mine too.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds good.
But I can't play a fiddle. I wish I could. Of all the instruments I've ever wanted to play, fiddle was at the top of the list, and it's the least one that I can do. I can't do it at all. Moving on here. I got some more side notes. I built another guitar for Ron McClanahan's son. Ron is the fellow that was making my deer antler saddles for me for a long time. You've seen him on the channel a time or two. Then I built a fiddle right after that, and I built quite a few fiddles. By this time, this was the third fiddle I had built for Prue Smith. And Prue was just a young gal in the Rolla, Missouri area. And when I got done with this violin, it made that one sound like trailer trash. I mean, seriously, this violin that I built for Prue was incredible. It was just a killer sound. And I strung it up before I even finished it. I could tell it was a killer violin. And, I was debating with her because I wanted to find out what it sounded like, because of the reason is she wanted it purple. I said, Prue, are you sure you want it purple? I said, you're going to take a violin that in my mind is probably worth $4,500 and you're going to turn it into a $150 garage sale item as soon as we make it purple. Are you sure you want it purple? Yep, got to be purple. Okay, so I made it purple. Customer's always right, even when they're wrong. And it still sounded great, just was purple. There you go. You win some, you lose some. Let's see here. Then the 29th mandolin, I think might be this one down here. And, yep, it is. And this one's another sycamore mandolin. Sycamore back again. And I'm hoping this is in tune. I don't know. I haven't, all these things were tuned early this morning. I really like the sound of this mandolin too. I played this mandolin for years on stage. I really like it. So that one there, I really like that one. But this, again, the sycamore, and I don't know how many sycamores I've actually built now.
All from your property, the trees?
Yeah. And the reason I started making them out of sycamore was the conservation agent came out and was just doing a site survey here to see what I needed to do to improve my property for wildlife and everything. And he's the one that told me to make the brush piles, and he was the one that told me to get rid of the sycamore trees right along the fence lines. He says, that's not where they should be growing. He says, those are water trees. They should be growing along the creeks and the rivers and things. And he said, the birds planted those. They're along your fence lines, and sure enough, they did. And so I, cut down one or two of them. I think I really only cut down one or so, maybe two sycamore trees, and I built a lot of mandolins out of them. I could have built a lot more, actually. I'll digress for a second and show you this. This is not really on the list at all. But I hesitate saying I built this. I would rather say I assembled this. And the reason is because, 5-string galvanized mechanical gadgets are more assembled than they are built. And the truth is, I didn't really make anything on this from scratch. What happened was people over the years, throughout my whole Luthier career, were always giving me banjo parts. Now, why they gave me banjo and nothing else, but they always gave me banjo parts. And one day, this was just before I got on YouTube, I think, and it was just before I moved my shop down here too, because I was only on YouTube a year or two before I moved my shop down here. Well, anyway, I thought, I might have enough parts to just put a banjo together. So I had that thought in the afternoon, and by the end of the day, I had this banjo made. And I mean, it's an okay banjo. It's nothing fancy at all. I don't know how to play one. Can't play it. Hands are too stiff. Don actually plays banjo, but you probably...
No, I've had one in my hand for like 30 years, but no, I don't claim to play it. I can empty a room.
But anyway, it's just a little banjo. It's got a little bit of weight to it, but it's not real heavy. It's not super heavy. Let's see, what else have we got to talk about here? Have I covered everything? Let's see. I built a mandolin for a good friend, and at the time, she was my oldest mandolin student I ever had. She was in her 70s, I believe, when I started teaching her. Maxine Hood was her name, and I built her a mandolin, and then they moved off to Bakersfield, California, and she played in a band out there and played for nursing homes all the time, and so she just loved it. You've seen the Thomas mandolin, the one that was returned here a bunch of times. It was the red mandolin, which I couldn't find anything wrong with, and I thought it sounded great and played great and everything. It just kept getting returned. I don't know why. But anyway, I built that mandolin. That's another significant one because it's been here so many times, and you've seen it on the channel a number of times. I built a mandolin for Dr. James Spadero, and he and I became pretty darn good friends. He's a heart doctor, and he's since retired. I want to mention Robert Barnum. He's become a friend, and he's down in Springfield, Louisiana. If he's watching, hello. And here's a mandolin that I completely forgot I built, and I'm not kidding you. And this one was only built back in 2019, and it went to Rod Clapham of the United Kingdom in England, and I completely forgot that. I didn't even know I had sent another mandolin overseas. You know, I say United Kingdom. Now I think about it, I think this went to Ireland. I'm not sure. Not sure about that, but I think that's where that went. Because it's starting to ring a bell now, but I had completely forgot that. Here's a guitar I built. Now, I actually think I built this around 2010, but I don't know when I built it. I just realized it wasn't on this list. So let me play this one for you. Now, this guitar is not much to look at. This is another one of those afterthought guitars where I was in the shop one day and I thought, you know what? I got enough spare parts here of things that didn't work. These were all things that broke, and I thought, I'll just put them together and make a guitar out of it. So here's that guitar, but there's another story to this too, I got to tell you. Good sounding guitar, and the back and sides are mahogany, and I didn't use these back and sides on a different guitar because they just didn't suit me when I was building a guitar for another person. And I don't remember who it was at the time. It might have been Ron's son, I don't remember, but I was building a guitar and they just didn't meet my standards, the back and sides. So I thought, well, I'll save them and maybe use them somewhere down the road. So I kind of tell you the story on the top on this. This is kind of a unique story. I took an old 1800s piano apart. It was already basically apart, and I decided I'm going to salvage the soundboard out of that piano. So I took the soundboard out of that piano and made this guitar. And I didn't know at the time, but that soundboard had hairline cracks in it, and some of those cracks are showing up in this. And anyway, that's what I made this out of. So this guitar top is way over 100 years old. Yeah, I had to thin it down a lot, and I painted it black because there were so many blemishes in it and so many cracks in it from being in that old piano and all the rough handling that old piano had had. And what you might not know is that there's little holes sometimes poked in places on pianos like that, and on those soundboards. So I had to cover up, disguise everything. That's why I painted it black. But it's not a bad sounding guitar, really. It's pretty good sounding guitar, actually. Let's see, I think that's all the guitars now. Well, no, it's not. We're getting to the last couple here. We're almost done, guys, if I'm wearing you out. Okay, then the 12-string custom guitar. Just stay wherever you're at.
I don't want to be the cause of you dropping it.
This 12-string is, you saw it being built in the videos, and this was going to a fellow over in Scotland, and I'm really happy with this one too. It's a great guitar. It's got a beautiful sound. It's a nice looking guitar. You know, all the binding on it was handmade. All the, you know, the inlay, everything was handmade. And he wanted a Scottish flag in it and all that. And he followed along and commented all the way through on the build of the guitar. And then about a month before we finished it, he quit commenting and we couldn't get a hold of him. And we tracked him down, and turns out apparently he was incarcerated. And so I've never heard back from him or anything. And I'm just going to hand that one down in the family. And let's see. Several years have passed, by the way, so I'm assuming that it's my guitar. Then the last one, of course, that I'm going to show you anyway, it's not the last one altogether, but is the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human. And those of you who followed along and saw this built, you know why I called it that. It was just a goal. I was trying to build the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human. Because the footnote on this one, and when I read, you know, I've got a description of everything that was included in the mandolin. You know, it just says things like this, it's a Lloyd Loar copy, and it's got many extras, including a third body point, Adirondack spruce top, quilted big leaf maple back and sides, Osage orange yellow wood used for make the rose, curly maple binding, abalone shell purfling. It just goes on and on and on. And then in the side notes here, it says, built this one for me, probably the last one I will ever build. And I'm pretty sure that's true. I can't play. My fingers are just not there. This is the one Don heard from the bathroom. I'm really, really happy with this mandolin. I really do like it a lot. It's a one of a kind for sure. You won't ever see another one just like this one. And, you know, I did put the extra body point on it. I still don't have my final finish on this mandolin. I just haven't had time to take it apart and do that. But that brings me to the next thing. I'm going to have more time to do this because I've decided, and I decided it at 3 a.m. this morning, I'm retiring. So I'm not going to be building anymore. I'm not going to be repairing anymore. The hands have had it, and it's time to just do something else, you know, and do what makes me happy. I've got 23 people that are on the waiting list for when I got off of my hiatus, and I had every intention of going to that waiting list and filling those orders. But the truth is, I set up a mandolin for him yesterday, and it hurt so bad, it just isn't fun anymore. And I can't imagine doing that 23 more times. Now, I do have 2 more instruments on the shelf that were the first ones on the list, and I'm going to finish those, and it's over after that. And I'm not going to accept any more. And I'm going to send emails to all the people on the waiting list, and with my apologies, and explain that it's time to call it quits. Over and done. So no regrets. I've had a good time doing this. I've done it for 40 years. It's my second retirement. I retired from Southwestern Bell in 2001, and I'm retiring from this in 2023. on the day I consider starting it back May 19th, 1983 is when I'm considering the start date, even though I don't really know when the actual start date was. But anyway, I've just decided it's time. I've got more than enough to keep me busy. I'm seeing the comments going like crazy. I got more than enough to keep me busy here on this farm. I do not plan to change anything in terms of my YouTube audience. I'm hoping that you'll stick with me and you'll watch me as I go through all the projects that I've got to do here on the farm, and I've got a bunch of them. And I will still probably build myself another instrument or two. Like I still want to build a dobro. I probably will find a way to get that done because I've never built a dobro from scratch. And you know, and then I'll still probably put out a daily vlog of what I'm doing around the farm, and I'll still probably hold my shop talks where you all can still ask me questions about instruments and all that kind of good stuff. I plan to keep it all basically just as it's been. Just the difference is I'm not going to be building and repairing instruments. The other side of that, in which you might not realize, is it just takes a load off your mind. I have had for years had people waiting on me, just constantly waiting on me. You know, have you got that done yet? Is that guitar finished? Is that mandolin done? You know, that kind of thing. And I just don't need that anymore. You know, it's time to not have to have that pressure and all that, you know, that stress. It's just tons of stress. And so I am making the announcement today that it's over. So I hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from. Anyway, I didn't want to put a damper on everything, but that's the truth of it. Okay, we're already at 9 o'clock, but I do know we have a lot of questions from yesterday. I'm going to try to go down through those and answer those as quick as I can. Let me find those here. Pardon me?
No, I'm sorry. Oh, I saw a thing go by there. A guy says, Jerry, tell a banjo joke. I'm not a banjo player, but, you know, what's the difference between a banjo and a trampoline?
Not quite sure I know.
You take your shoes off to jump on a trampoline.
Yeah, that's true. My favorite of all time banjo jokes, though, it's just my favorite of all time, is the what's the difference between a banjo player and a 16-inch pizza?
Well, I don't know.
Well, a 16-inch pizza can feed a family of 4. That's just my favorite all-time banjo joke. I just like that one. I don't know why. I just do.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, so from My Lex G, we've got Jerry. I know how to measure scale lengths. When measuring from the nut or 12th fret to the saddle, where is that point? Just behind the saddle or in front? Please give a demo if possible. Well, you know, there's a couple ways you can do it. I'll tell you the way I do it. And I think it's the right way. The scale length is measured. Your scale length, simply said, is the length of your string. I mean, that's the simplest way to say it. It's the length of your string. So what is the length of your string? The length of your string is from this edge of the nut, so it's this edge of the nut right here, to this edge of the saddle. So the close edge of each one of those. So the inside edge of the saddle and the nut, that's your scale length. And that's why I say you don't mess with this, ever. Every single fret, this fret is measured so many thousandths from there, this fret's measured so many thousandths from there. They're not measured from fret to fret. They're measured from this fret to that spot, and from this fret to that spot. That's the measurement. And when you start messing with this, you just messed every fret on your fretboard up. And I know some people still will argue that that's how they can make it work. Well, you can still make it work without doing that. You can make it work just by fixing it down here. make your string the right length, and this will all be right then. And so making it the right length, and it's impossible to say what the right length is because every mandolin and every guitar built is slightly different, just a little bit, for one reason or another. And I don't even understand that part of it. I don't. I'm not going to try to pretend I do. But every one of them you do is going to be slightly different. And that's why I don't rely on measurements to set that only gets you really close. The measurements from this to these frets, that's exact. There's no play in that. But when you set your bridge, there is some play there. And that's why I don't ever rely on measurements to set my bridge. I rely on the sound, noting the notes. So that's the best explanation I can give you on setting your scale. And you really have to note it to check you hit your open string like that, then you hit it at the 12th fret, and it should be exactly the same place on your tuner. And when I say exactly the same place, sure, that would be perfect if it's perfectly dead center. But let's just say for the sake of it, you just can't get it to be dead center for whatever reason. And let's just say it's a second flat. Well, then when you note it at the 12th fret, it ought to still be a second flat. Okay, as my point is. It should all be relative. If it's perfectly dead center, when you hit it open, it should be perfectly dead center when you note it. So anyway, that's the best I've got. I hope that helps you.
There was a comment that went by that, are you still going to let people stay in let people rent your retreat?
Yeah, I will. I haven't thought that far ahead. Would I still let them bring an instrument? I'm not too sure about it. I kind of think I'm over it. I hate.
You didn't ask if the first question. She didn't ask about the instrument, but the very first one.
Yeah. Up here.
Yeah. It's not a B&B.
Yeah. The Airbnb is still going to be available, and you can start the process to rent the Airbnb on my website. All it does is it's just a link to the Airbnb site, but you can start it on my website. That way you can find it easier. It's harder to find it if you start on Airbnb to find it. So if you start on my website on that tab that says Valley Springs Ranch Retreat, then you scroll down, there's a link to get you over to the Airbnb specific place to rent the spot.
Very quiet, extremely clean. It's one of them cleaning the corners keeping kind of places. Very quiet. We've been there 3 days and enjoyed it.
Good. So we really have had wonderful feedback from everybody. And my wife is a clean freak, so everything's going to be perfect when you get here. And the apartment's perfect also. So the apartment is just an efficiency apartment. It's just a little 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, one little tiny kitchenette thing, and it's all jammed together. And then the where he's staying is just a full size house basically, but it's a small full size house. It's got big rooms though. All the rooms are big, so it's a really nice fixed up place, and my wife decorated it really nice. So if you want to rent that, feel free. It does actually fill up a lot faster than you would think. So you might want to get started renting it if you might want to make your reservations ahead of time. You'd be surprised how often it's full. And so many people have come back multiple times. And some of them are musical people that have come back multiple times, but some of them have nothing to do with music at all, and they've come back multiple times.
And left wonderful comments in your ledger.
Yeah,
I read them all.
Yeah, there are some nice comments in there.
Absolutely.
So I'm really pleased with it, and my wife has done a wonderful thing there. The way she's fixed it up and everything.
There's another one in there now.
Pardon me?
There's another one in there now.
Luke If says, how many layers of finish do you usually use on your instruments? Recently, I tried to refinish a spot on a guitar, and currently I'm over 10 layers. Yeah, Luke, especially if you're doing nitrocellulose lacquer, 10 is not uncommon at all. I would say 24 is not uncommon with lacquer. Lacquer takes forever. Just takes forever. You got to put it on. I put on sometimes 4 coats in one day on lacquer because it dries in about 30 minutes. So I'll give it an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and then I'll come back, spray it again. Hour and a half, 2 hours, come back, spray it again. Come back and spray it again. Come back and spray it again. Do it 4 or 5 times in one day, and then do that for 3 or 4 days in a row. And then I'll let it set and cure for maybe 4 or 5 days or a week. And then I'll give it a light sanding, and then I'll come back and do the same process all over again. And I might do that same whole process 3 or 4 times until I'm happy with it. It just takes forever. Nitrocellulose lacquer takes forever. I've said it before, and people don't believe me. Putting the finish on is the hardest thing about building an instrument. A good finish. I mean, you can just slap something on there and call it a finish, but if you're wanting to do a good finish, that's the hardest thing there is to do on your instrument. I've said this before, but it's been years. Back in the very early 2000s, when I started getting many more orders and things for instruments, I contacted a guy that was a specialist in finishing. And at that time, in the early 2000s, he wanted $1,800 to finish one of my mandolins. And that's just to put the finish on it. I thought that seemed crazy ridiculous. But you know, the more I think about it, that's a steal deal. I should have took him up on it. Because and he did excellent finishes. I mean, they were beautiful. Well, anyway, moving on. Mike Curtin says, congratulations on your 40th anniversary. From what I've seen on your videos, you dye or stain the wood before applying any finish when making a sunburst. I recently saw a video where they had applied a couple of coats of shellac or lacquer first, then stained it. Yeah, there's a million ways to skin every cat. I like to put the stain on the wood, and then I like to put stain in the finish if I want to airbrush the edges and things like that. You can do it any way you want to do it. I mean, there's no black and white one way you have to do it, But I just do it that way. I find that I can mix and match my colors better that way for me. He says, he added a comment of his own. He says, at least that's what I think I saw. But yeah, there's no black and white one way to do anything. And that's really true on everything about an instrument. I mean, there's, lots of people will tell you there's a black and white one way and it has to be this way, but most everything is not that way. Bill Roche. Hey, Jerry, I would like to try, it says marking a mandolin, but I think he says wants that to be making a mandolin. What are the must-have tools? Okay, yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about when I built that first mandolin. I had to have a bandsaw, I felt like, because there's so many curves and things, and then you got to slice your wood real thin for the sides, and you can do all that with hand tools, but it's way harder. So I felt like the bandsaw was the most essential tool for me. Now, I got to be honest, it's the bandsaw and my thickness sander. Those are my 2 essentials. I wouldn't even want to try to build an instrument without those 2 tools. I could build it without everything else, but those 2 tools I got to have. That thickness sander is worth its weight in gold 10 times over, in my opinion. And there are plans for that, to build your own thickness sander like it, or to have a machine shop build it for you. Those plans are available on my website. Moving on, Thomas Armstrong. Hi, Jerry. 40 years awesome. When tuning the G string, it will jump sharp with a popping sound. Then I have to adjust this string down. That's probably because it's you've got it pinched in your nut. It's terrible when you got pinched nuts, let me tell you. It really is bad. So I'd say 90.9% sure the slot is too tight and it's grabbing, or the other possibility is that there's a peak in the slot and it's coming over that little peak. So most likely it's jammed tight in the slot. So I would just take and open up the slot a little bit. People think that those slots have to be the exact size of your string. They do not. In fact, I don't want them the exact size of my strings. I want the slot bigger than my string. Not by a ton, but I want it bigger than my string. You know, like if it's a 56,000 string, I want that slot 58,000 minimum. I want it 2,000 bigger than the string. And the reason is because it's going to pinch if you don't. And I don't want it pinching. I want it to come through the slot easily. So I would say that's 99% of what's happening there. He goes on to say that maybe graphite would help. Yeah, you know, I do that a lot, especially on the wrapped strings. I'll put pencil lead down in the slots. I do that a lot. I don't do it every time, but I do it a lot. Moving on, Clyde Lewis. Congratulations on the 40th, Jerry. I guess we won't commemorate it with a bottle of hot hide glue. Can't wait to hear Cash play again. He has a great teacher. My question is about Titebond Original. In a few of your repair videos, you use a little bit of water on an artist's paintbrush to help draw the glue down into a tight crack. Yes. On a glue like Titebond, can a little water like that just evaporate and not affect the strength of the glue? Clyde, the reason you want the water in there is to help draw that initial glue down in there, because that glue's kind of thick and it won't want to draw. And as you draw it down in there and keep painting it, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. And the tiny amount of water that's involved in that is not a problem, I guarantee you. I've never had knock on wood, I have never, not one single time in 40 years, at least to my knowledge, had a glue joint come apart. Not one glue joint, not one. Zero. Now I know that's a crazy claim to make, but that's my claim. I have never, not one single time, had a glue joint fail. So my point is, the little bit of water you're introducing there is not going to be a problem, because I've done it a million times. I've never had a problem. And using Titebond Original can anybody say that with hide glue? Not one person on this earth can say that with hide glue. None. Zero. Not one person. There you go.
You don't like hide glue?
I like hide glue. I think hide glue is great. It was really great back when ox carts were the best form of transportation. But we've got better transportation and better glue now.
I love to stir the pot.
I know, and you did that on purpose. He knew what I was going to say. But anyway, seriously, the hide glue, it isn't a horrible glue. And if I was repairing a Stradivari violin, I'd probably use hide glue. I really would. I mean, I'm not saying that facetiously. I probably would, because it makes sense. I'm not repairing Stradivari violins. I'm repairing Martin guitars that I don't ever want to come apart again. You know, there you go. Moving on. Phil Womack. Was the chocolate violin your most difficult repair in 40 years? And if not, what was? Well, I have told this story many times. It definitely was not chocolate. In fact, I'm not even sure chocolate makes the top 5. I'm not even sure it does, honestly. You know, maybe it's because I don't mean to make this sound like I'm bragging too much here, but the truth is that maybe because I had so much experience, by the time I did the chocolate thing was fairly simple, really. All it was just gluing stuff back together. You know, it wasn't no big deal. I'll tell you the hard one was I've told this story so many times. I'll try to give you as short a version of it as I can, but it's a long story. Was the guitar that I picked up in Dodge City, Kansas. It was pitch black dark. I've already told you I'm totally night blind. I can't see my hand in front of my face. You could swing an axe in front of my face, and I would never know it in the pitch black dark. I cannot see nothing. So this guy comes up to me in the pitch black dark in Dodge City, Kansas, says, I heard you could fix anything. Well, I haven't found anything I couldn't fix yet. He says, I want you to take this guitar. This is a 1950s whatever, Gibson whatever, and I don't remember anymore, honestly, what it was. And it was owned by my dad, and he says, to me, it's a priceless guitar. It's got to be fixed. Well, sure, put it in the car. I'll take it home with me, and I'll fix it. I'll look at it when I get home, you know. And so 3 or 4 days passed. I open up the case. I pick up the phone. I call the guy back. I said, mister, I'm just going to throw this in the dumpster for you. I said, there's no reason for me to ship this back to you. It's just going to cost you money to throw it in the dumpster. There's nobody could fix this. This is a biggest piece of junk I ever saw in my life. He starts crying on the phone. I'm not lying to you. He was crying, bawling his eyes out. You got to fix it. It's my dad's guitar. I got to have it fixed. I mean, he's literally, seriously crying. And I said, oh, wow. I didn't know it was that, important, And I mean, this thing was a disaster. It made chocolate look like it was already together before I started. I can't even tell you how bad it was. Every square inch of the top was broken. And I mean square inch. I don't mean this far apart. I mean square inches. It was broken. The back and sides were just cracked and busted all over. The back was bad. It wasn't as bad as the top, but it was bad. The sides were bad, not as bad as the top, but it was bad. That wasn't even half the story. Then you look inside the guitar, and somebody had taken, and I'm not exaggerating again, it was a full bottle of like Elmer's wood glue, a gallon bottle. I'm talking the gallon size. Poured the whole gallon inside the guitar, and then just did this. The glue was more than a 1/4 inch thick through the whole inside of the guitar. I'm not exaggerating. It was that thick. And that wasn't bad enough. They glued a piece of baby bed paneling, or a piece of wall paneling about this big. I'm trying to give you an example of the triangle. It was a big triangle, big, just as big, could fit through the hole. And they glued that up inside it. What they thought they were fixing with that, I have no idea. And then there was a piece of baby bed railing about 10 inches long, glued up inside it. You could tell it was baby bed railing. I mean, it was obvious. It had holes in it where the little things went for the baby bed, It was horrible. So, I know this is a long story. I can't help it. It's just a long story. And so I said to the guy, I said, look, oh, Doug, thank you so very much. He just gave me a huge super chat. Thank you very, very, very much, Doug. I really appreciate it. He says, thanks for all the work. Can't tell you. Doug, by the way, I should have mentioned his name. I had it highlighted here. I was going to, and I kind of skipped over a bunch of them. But I built Doug a guitar, too. I hope he still likes it. Sorry, but happy you will be able to enjoy your retirement. Thank you so very, very much, Doug. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for your friendship. But anyway, so I'm telling this guy, how bad this guitar is and that it just needs to go in the dumpster because nobody could fix that. Well, because he was crying so much and he was just pleading and begging with me, I said, all right, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'll fix your guitar. But you have to tell me how it got in this shape or I'm not going to fix it. I said, this is just ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. I said, if this was a case of child abuse, it's the worst case of child abuse in the history of the whole world. I was mad, actually, because I thought, what an idiot to give me this piece of junk, I mean, it was horrible. You just don't realize how bad this was. I can't describe it bad enough. I'm seriously telling you. So he goes, oh, I didn't want to tell you that. I said, well, you're going to have to tell me because I'm not going to fix it unless you tell me the whole story. He goes, all right, well, you know how cold the winters are here in Kansas? And I said, well, I don't really know, but I can imagine. He says, it's like 15 below, 20 below. And he says, that's the way it was one night. And I was in bed and I realized I left my dad's guitar in the trunk of the car. He says, man, I didn't even put on shoes. I just jumped out of bed, ran outside, grabbed the guitar out of the trunk, came inside, and I opened up the case, and I set the guitar right next to the wood stove, and I jumped back in bed. I was freezing. And he says, about 5 minutes later, I heard it go, kapow! And he says, it just busted that back all over the place. I said, all right, back up the truck. I said, look, you ain't talking to some dummy here. I know that could happen. And I know that could have caused some of those cracks in the back. The cracks that would cause will be the straight line cracks. No problem with that. I'll believe your story on that. But that did not cause these other cracks. These cracks that are going across the grain in the top, ain't no way that caused that. No way. I don't care what you say, that didn't cause that. He sighs again. He goes, I really don't want to tell you that part. I said, well, you're going to have to tell me because I'm not going to fix it. He says, well, you know how guys are. No, he starts off with the vibrations thing. He says, you've heard probably that you can set a guitar in front of a speaker and it'll vibrate and it'll make it sound better over time. I said, yeah, I've heard that, and it probably helps. It probably doesn't hurt anything, I said, if anything, it probably does help a little bit. But I said, that didn't cause this. He goes, no. But he says, that was the idea we had. And he says, you know how guys are. We get all drunked up. We were out on the front porch of the house there, and we were all just as drunk as we could be on 4th of July. And we were talking about that vibration thing. And one guy says, why don't you put a firecracker in that, and that'll make it vibrate, and they're using all the 4-letter words, of course. And he goes, I said, no, you didn't put a firecracker in it, did you? He goes, no, I didn't. He says, I put the whole pack in there. I said, the whole pack? Well, that explained how it was busted like it was. But why he tried to fix it was what really just floors me, and how he thought pouring a whole gallon jug of glue inside that thing and then, like I said, chocolate was a piece of cake. No pun intended. Seriously, that was the worst. And, some other notable ones are like the Regal Rec. That wasn't nearly like that one from Kansas, but Regal Rec was a pretty good one, and it's had a lot of views. Chocolate was definitely a notable one, and I do tell a lot of people to watch the chocolate video because I wished we would have had the Kansas one on video, but that was way before YouTube, way before the internet even. And the follow-up story on that guitar from Kansas, the one with the glue in it, the follow-up story is 10 years later, after I sent it back to him. We had already moved to this farm by then, and the phone rings, and this lady says, are you Jerry Rosen? I said, yes. And she says, well, you don't know me. She said, but my husband, you fixed a guitar for my husband, and you told him if it was a case of child abuse, it was the worst case of child abuse in the history of the whole world. I said, lady, I know exactly who you are. And she says, well, I was just wondering if you could help me. She said, I've got the guitar here. My husband just recently passed away, and I've had an offer to sell the guitar, and I wanted to know how much you think it's worth. Now, keep in mind, it was a 1950s something Gibson, I don't remember. It was worth a lot of money. I mean, if it was in good shape. Well, keep in mind, I fixed everything, and I built a whole new top for that guitar. There was no salvaging the top. I just built a whole new top from scratch. And I said, well, what's your offer? How much are they offering? She said, $3,800. I said, sell it. $3,800. I couldn't believe she got offered that for that guitar. So anyway, that's the whole story. Sorry that I had to belabor it, but you can't tell that story without telling the whole story. It's just impossible. Okay, so no, Phil, the chocolate thing wasn't the worst. Wasn't even close. I'd say the chocolate was probably second worst, maybe if you just go by the total destruction of the instrument. But I've had a lot of other. Well, actually, now I think about it, I had another violin just like that, and it was a really nice violin too. He was the first. Well, not really the first, but he's probably the first child musician that I had in my band. He was only like 14 years old. He was a young boy, and he says, I got my grandpa's old fiddle. Could I bring that to you? Could you fix that? And sure enough, he brought it to me in a paper sack, and it was just in pieces, tons of pieces, and it had 2 mouse holes chewed through the F holes. They were big mouse holes. So I had to match grain and cut pieces out and put it all back in and recarve it. And so that was another very notable one. But again, way before YouTube. I'd kind of forgot about that until just now. But so, chocolate, it was bad, but it wasn't near as bad as some of these others. So anyway, Moving on. I left this comment in here. This is not a question, but Gene Edwards, this is just one of many, 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 and I thank you all for all the wonderful comments. It just said, congratulations on your 40 years. I really enjoy and have enjoyed watching your videos. Much appreciated. As I said before, I would rather watch your videos than just about anything on TV. I wish you all the best from Gilbert, Arizona, and that was Gene Edwards. Gene, I'm really sorry that your life has gone down that far, that my videos are the best thing. No, I appreciate it very much, Gene. I really do. Thank you so much for the kind words.
I live 4 hours north of here, and we watch Jerry every day.
Do you?
Every video.
I'm so sorry.
No.
It's funny. Bill Dedrick, Jerry, have you ever met and or played with Adam Steffi? If so, what did you think of his playing expertise and tone? I see his playing Northfield mandolin now. Adam Steffi is, I would say he's probably my number 2 hero in mandolins, maybe 3, I don't know. It's hard to pick them out. Sierra Hull, for me, she's just incredible. I just think she's just incredible. You know, Chris Thiele, he's incredible too, just way over everybody's head. So I can't understand him. But, I mean, he's incredible. I'm not knocking him at all. I'm just saying he's so far out there that I can't even follow him. Adam Steffi is just one of the cleanest, best-sounding mandolin players on the whole planet. He's just killer. In fact, Sierra Hull said he was her inspiration when she learned. So, and you can hear it in her playing. She plays a lot like Adam Steffi. Adam's killer. And have I met him? Sort of, kind of. I was standing shoulder width away from him. You know, he was talking to somebody else. I was kind of standing there listening to the conversation. But no, I didn't really meet him. Not really. I mean, I think we introduced ourselves probably, but he wouldn't know me from Adam Steffi.
Early in the morning, Jerry.
Charles Berquist, when can you show us how the quarter attachment works? Cannot picture this in my mind. Well, Charles, you're in luck, because when I get done with the shop talk today, that's the video I'm working on next to put out either tonight or tomorrow. I'm not sure I'll get it all done today, but if I do get it done today, it'll go out tonight, and it'll show you in detail how the quarter saw attachment works. Christy Gert says, hi, Jerry. Congratulations on your 40 years making and repairing string instruments of top quality. I watched the previous video you put up on YouTube, and I'm reading more. The song by Larry Thomas gave me tears, Sweet Melinda. Sad to hear he passed away. My condolences to his family and to you. I wanted to download that song and some of yours. Only one song at a time. This download site jumps away from your website. I haven't heard any problems with the downloads. It generally works. You might try restarting your PC or your thing. If it's still a problem, somebody let me know. But as far as I know, the download works. We still are selling them occasionally. I don't sell a lot of them anyway, but I don't think there's anything I can do on my end, but I'll look at it.
So many people. Like I say, I watch every video you produce, and you're always trying to irritate me. People say, well, it's buffering or it's doing something. That's on their end.
Yeah, a lot of times I think it is.
Yeah, there's hundreds of people watching this, and there's 2 guys out there saying something.
Right.
It's their end.
Yeah, and it's possible that I'm never going to say it's never on my end, because it could be, but I think the song download thing, I think, is probably unique to your situation, but maybe not. Maybe not. It could easily be on my end too. I can't quite understand the rest of her comment there. Great in the field welding, none of the NASA GTAW or GMA stuff, just good old shielded stick welding without cooling bars, just your skill. Well, I'm not much of a welder, but I get it. I can make it stick. And she likes the land, likes to see the sights around the farm. Paul Akers is the next one. Says, would you remove and reglue a guitar bridge if the corners are 444 loose? I'm not sure what that means. I think that's another code thing, 444. I guess it's coming loose pretty bad. I think maybe it was like that from the factory. I think it is, I'm a terrible reader. Oh, he asked also about that little pan. That's very old, that little pan that I used to put screws and things in. It came from a doctor's office at Southwestern Bell. We used to have our own in-house doctor at Southwestern Bell, and when they closed the doctor's office, they asked me to help clean it out, and so I did. And a lot of that stuff they were just throwing in the trash. I said, "Heck, I can use this stuff." So I just took a lot of it home, and I still have a lot of it here that I use. Anyway, but if the corners are loose, if all four corners are loose, most likely there's quite a bit of finish under the bridge. And so for me, I'd probably take the bridge off and get rid of all the finish and glue it back down. That's probably the way I would handle it, Paul. I know that's a lot of work, but that's probably what I would do. And that's based on the fact that if all four corners are loose, you're pretty much, that's where you are. And you can always wait and just watch it and keep your eye on it. If it doesn't get any worse, then maybe you don't even need to fix it, you know. But the thing you got to watch about that is because there's less surface area glued to the top, there's a good chance that it's going to put a lot of pressure in those spots where it is glued, and it's going to start to pull up and make a hump. So watch for that hump. If that hump starts in there, take the bridge off. Omar Landry. Hi, Jerry. Congratulations on your 40th. Quite impressive. And you're so right being 10 again and knowing what we know now. Yeah, that's true. My question is, I have to place a shim on my bridge because of string buzzing. I have a pickup that requires a little wire thing to go around the saddle. Does it make a difference where to place the shim under or over the little piece of electronics? I hope you understand what I'm saying. Sort of. I'm assuming you're talking about a mandolin there with the type of bridge and the pickup that you're talking about. The only thing I can say, even if it's not a mandolin, but you just want to make sure when it comes to your sound, you want as solid a contact as you can. And that would even include on your pickup. You want as solid a contact as you can get. So if you got to put a shim in there and there's some airspace in there or whatever, you know, you want solid contact. That's the best I can explain. Even if you put a shim in there, you want to make the shim where it's as solid a contact as you can get. It'll probably be fine if you do that. Oops, got a Charlie horse in my leg. Sorry. Oh, I hate that. I hate that when that happens.
Sorry, like I don't ever get them. Right?
Yeah, right. So anyway, but anyway, the only other thing I could say about the shim is that you want to make it out of hardwood. You don't want the shim to be softwood. In other words, you don't want it a spruce shim. You want it to be a rosewood shim or even just a domestic hardwood. But it needs to be a hardwood to get the most out of your sound. And that was from Omar Landry in New Brunswick. I hope that helps you, Omar. I'm not quite sure I followed the whole explanation there, but I tried. Rob Walker, hi, Jerry. Check your birth certificate. Did you really start building instruments when you were 10 years old? Yes, I did. My son, I will be 69 this year. This particular year is also our 25th year here on the farm, by the way. So it's 40 years on this, 25 years here on the farm, and probably 47 years married, I guess.
You better figure that one out.
Yeah, I probably should. Let's see. My son took his guitar to the local repair shop because of intonation problems. The guy said it needed a new neck. Any thoughts? Well, I'd have to see it or know more, I guess, before I could really give you my thoughts. But, you know, I've told this story before too. I used to follow people around at Southwestern Bell and pull their hardware out of the trash cans when they were fixing PCs because automatically they just said it's bad. They don't know. A lot of people just don't know their butt from a hole in their teeth, and that's just the truth of it. And does this guy know? Maybe he does. I don't know. He might know. But so many people just automatically go to those kinds of explanations instead of just addressing the real problem and fixing what the real problem is. So I have my strong doubts that it needs a new neck, but maybe it does. Maybe he is that one guy that does know his butt from a hole in his teeth. But so often they don't. And that's why so often I've heard this many times, not just once. I've heard this many times. Oh, this is the third neck reset I've had on my Martin guitar. This is the second neck reset I've had on my Martin guitar. Well, I would say, obviously, somebody's not doing something right. You know, that's just black and white to me. They didn't fix the real problem. And that's why I get off on my high horse on that neck reset thing. The neck reset thing is the first thing people go to instead of fixing the real problem. And I bet you that's the same problem here too. It's probably not the real problem is the neck. It's probably some other problem. That's my suspicion. And it's a strong suspicion because it's usually right. But I don't know that until I see it. I could agree with the guy and say, no, you need a new neck. I mean, it's possible. Richard Lawler, could you discuss the differences between a laminated top versus a solid spruce top? Are laminated plywood tops sonically inferior? Well, Richard, you could probably argue both ways on this all day long, but you know, I'm a traditional guy pretty much when it comes to building instruments, and so I'm going to lean towards the solid spruce top versus the laminated top. Have I heard any laminated instruments that were really good? Yeah, I have. I've heard quite a few that sounded really, really good. But I would say on the whole, you know, on your average, you're going to find more good sounding solid spruce tops than you're going to find laminated tops by quite a large margin, I think. That's the best explanation I can give you on that. I mean, it's just kind of an odds thing. I'm not saying you can't find a good laminated one, and you might do it. Now, laminated back and sides is much more common, and you'll hear, you know, many more good guitars in that way with a solid spruce top or redwood top or western cedar top with a laminated back and sides. And you'll still hear a lot more that way that'll even be better than the laminated top. The laminated top would be the last one I would choose of those three examples there. Dottie Hildebrand, congratulations on the 40 years. My question is, do you remember the very first instrument you worked on and what was it? God bless. Here's to many years of, I don't know, many more years it says. Well, Dottie, you wrote that before you heard my retirement, so I'll give you that. But we won't be doing the instrument repair and building for many more years. But I don't honestly remember the very first thing I worked on. I really don't. I'm just sure it was somebody in a jam session that had some problem with something on their instrument, and they said, hey, since you built that mandolin, can you fix this? And I said, sure. And that's about the best I can remember, Dottie. I truly, I didn't know at that point in time that I'd be doing this 40 years later. So it wasn't significant at that time, you know what I mean? It would be now if I could remember it, but I just can't remember it. Ron Stewart, how about a comparison between the first and last mandolin that you built and a description of the different woods? So let me just play them side by side here. This is the first mandolin, and it's a really good sounding old mandolin. It was the very first one I built. And this one's the one with the western cedar and the bird's eye. And, I finished this one on today's date, but in 1984. And my son was exactly 1 year old, so today is his birthday. This one's had 39 years to have a decent sound. This one's had closer to 39 months, but I don't even think it's been that many months. More closer to 39 weeks, actually, probably. I can't pick a winner. I mean, I like them both. What do you hear?
I can't tell the difference.
I can't hardly tell the difference either. Again, this is going to sound self-serving, kind of. I'm sorry, but it's just a fact, and I'm only stating it because, to me, it's a fact. And that is, I've heard over the years, I've heard every luthier I've ever talked to, every single one of them has always said the same thing, and that is, every one of them's different. Every one of them sounds different. I don't feel that way. Every one of my mandolins sounds just about like every other one of my mandolins, for the most part. I mean, there's some slight differences, but slight. They're not like a lot different. They're really closer. And in fact, I've had that comment, or even probably the finest compliment I've ever had, has been different musicians coming around at jams or festivals and things, and they say, we can always tell a Rosa mandolin. You can just tell the sound of them, I've heard that many times. And so I just take that as my finest compliment. So anyway, moving on. Oh, I didn't play the new one. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I played them both. But the new one is quilted maple is on the back and sides on it. Big leaf maple comes up from northwestern United States, Washington, Oregon, that kind of area. And I bought that maple for this one. I bought off of the eBay. In fact, I had bought quilted maple from this guy before, or something from this guy before, so I knew he was selling good stuff. And when I saw this maple on the eBay site, I instantly just said, just like when I saw this farm, I instantly said, I'm buying that. I'm just buying it, period. I didn't even have to think about it as soon as I saw it. So I was prepared for just the back and sides. I was prepared to pay up to $1,000. I didn't care what it went for. I was going to buy it. And I ended up getting it for $300, which is still high. I mean, you can buy a lot of back and sides for $300. But anyway, I wasn't going to be outbid. That's all I can tell you for sure when I saw it. And so I bought it. Let me tell you one more really funny story about the second mandolin I built. This is a good story. It's probably one of my best stories, really. And it's a true story, I promise you. And again, this one's bird's eye maple. Now, this is the redwood top, okay? This is, in fact, it's the only redwood mandolin I've built. And I really like the sound of this one. And like I've said, a lot of people have said, this is the only mandolin I should be playing. I just can't do it. I just can't play anymore. Just can't do it. Fingers just don't work like they did. But anyway, this is the funny story on this was I had it's kind of like a promotion, and yet it was like just a job change. It wasn't so much a promotion, but for me it was a promotion. I ended up going from a service rep to the outside rep, which meant that I had a company car working for Southwestern Bell, and I would go out and meet customers face to face. And so I was always out and about. Well, on my lunch hour, because I was out and about, most of the time I'd spend my lunch hour doing something that I enjoyed, which was like walking through a hardware store, which I know most people would think, well, that's really stupid, but that's what I did. I would walk through a hardware store, just look at different things, and, because that's the kind of thing that gets me going, Well, I'm in this hardware store, and it was in Manchester, Missouri. I'll never forget it. can't remember the name of the hardware store. I think it was Essen Hardware, but I'm not really sure about that. But anyway, I see this stack of 2x4s, and it's a big stack of 2x4s. I mean, this was probably 4 foot high and 4 foot wide. And then I look under the stack of 2x4s, and I see this redwood board, and I could tell it's perfectly quarter sawed, and it's like so thick. And I'm going, wow, that's a nice piece of wood. Here they're selling 2x4s, and I'm looking at the boards laying on the floor that they're stacked on, you know. And I'm going, man, that looks good. And so I get down on the floor, and I'm looking at this board. I get around on the other side, and I'm looking at this board. So I see a little clerk person walk by, and I said, hey, is it possible that I could buy that board down there? He looks at me like I got 3 heads, and he's going, that board? That's the stack board. We don't sell that board. I said, I know, but is there a chance I could buy it? Well, I don't know. You'll have to talk to the manager about that. So he points me out to the manager. I go to the manager, and I bring the manager over there. I said, I tried to explain to him. I said, I build musical instruments. That particular board there would make a great mandolin, and I would like to build a mandolin out of that board. He goes, that board? It's a stack board. You know, I said, look, I'll tell you what. I'll pay you anything you want for it. I don't care. I'll pay you anything you want for it. He goes, well, we'd have to unstack all those 2x4s. I said, I'll unstack them. He said, well, I'll have a boy help you. So we unstacked them all, restacked them and everything. I take this board up to the cashier, and the manager's up there, and I said, okay, how much are you going to charge me for it? He goes, would $1.50 be okay? I said, that's just fine with me. I said, are you sure that's all you want? So I paid $1.50 for the top on this mandolin. And like I said, lots of people have told me this is the only mandolin I should be playing. This was the one that got ran over, cracked, you know, and all that. But it is a good mandolin. I really do like it. But, you know, I like them all. Okay, let me see. We're dragging this out, but it's the 40th anniversary. I get to drag it out. 196 viewers. Hey, that's pretty good. It just keeps jumping up and down, though. I don't know if I trust that number. James Kopp says, happy 40th. You are not supposed to do anything. You do what you want. Okay, well, I'll agree with that. And that's kind of what I did at 3 this morning. I decided it's over. I'm just done. You know, it's not even just the work. It's like I said, it's the brain thing. It's the always being in stress, owing somebody something. You know, like those 2 up on the shelf. That bugs me that they're sitting up on the shelf, even though I told the guy I was on a hiatus and that they would have to wait till I got to it, you know. It still bugs me in my brain. And so I may just go ahead and get those done now and get it over with and, you know, call it good.
I told you yesterday it's much better to quit under your conditions.
Yeah. I got to be honest with you, that was one of the deciding factors. It really was what he said. Say it again.
It's more of a mental strain on you.
Yeah.
If you quit under your conditions than it is if you wait another year and it's taken away from you.
Right.
By things you can't control.
Right.
You'll
And
feel much better.
honestly, that was another big part of the factor. What he said.
I'm sorry, folks. I didn't mean to influence him.
Well, you know, I was already telling him I was thinking about it. And after he said that, I thought, you know what? He is 100% right, and I'm going to just call it good. But for me, honestly, the hands is a big part. Come on in. Honestly, the hands is a big part. Don't get me wrong. And probably if it wasn't for the hands, I probably wouldn't do it. But the hands coupled with the stress is the reason. Curtis Mealer looks like the next one here. When I see that cedar lumber, I think of a cedar chest. Have you ever thought of making one? That would make a great video. And just like he says, you don't have anything else to do, you know. He says, I enjoy your channel. Well, Curtis, those kinds of things cross my mind, but the truth is we already do have a real nice cedar chest that my wife inherited, I think, from her mother or whatever, and we don't need one.
And you see that wood come out of the saw like that, just freshly sawn. That is so beautiful. It just makes you want to build something with it.
Yeah, it's nice stuff.
Oh.
It's really nice stuff. We got 18 2x4s out of 2 logs, 10 out of one and 8 out of the other one, and they're just as red as they can be, or at least, what I call red. I'm colorblind, but they're definitely the center part of the cedar log, which supposedly is red. That's what everybody tells me. I'll just go with it that way. The next one, West Pro WSPR. No, it's PRC, I guess. It looks like an O, but I guess it's a C. Jerry, congratulations on the anniversary, as well as the world's finest YouTube channel ever built by a human, and that you for years of learning, and thank you for the years of learning and enjoyment. I am an old fogey, still finding it remarkable that 40 years ago when you started, or even 20 years ago, your video accomplishments would have required renting production studio or buying extremely expensive equipment and then buying TV airtime or starting your own TV station or broadcast network. And even then, with no ability like today to reach virtually anyone on the planet with internet access and a computer. Pretty crazy, huh? Your thoughts? Well, you're right. I have the one quote I've said a lot to my friends and family is if YouTube had been around in the 80s or the 90s, I'd have retired much earlier. I didn't retire because of YouTube at all. But in fact, the sad story is I could see the handwriting on the wall. I was losing my retirement. It was just the stock market had crashed. The economy was in the toilet, and I was burning through my retirement. And you know how the government makes everything like, when you set what you can withdraw from your 401k, you can't change that again till you're 59 and a half or something like that. Well, I was 46 when I retired. So I couldn't change it for all those years. Well, I burned through it. And I would have changed it if I could have, But if it's one of those deals where if you're withdrawing the money, you're going to use the money. You know how it is. And so I did, and I burned through it. And I could tell I was going to lose this farm. So that's when I started my YouTube channel. And I even told Ron McClanahan at that time, I said, I'm going to try this on YouTube. Maybe I'll get a few orders and things, and maybe it'll bring in enough money where I can keep the farm, Whew, 10 years later, oh my gosh. I can't believe how it's blown up. It's just unbelievable. And I don't feel like I have to worry about losing the farm anymore, Even though I've lost all my retirement, it's gone. I don't have any of that anymore. But I don't feel like I'm in any danger of losing the farm because of you guys, YouTube and everything. And if I only knew then what I know now, I would have started the YouTube channel day one that YouTube started. So I thank y'all for that. And yeah, the technology is just incredible that you can reach all over the world. I mean, I've had instruments in here from the island of Palau down by New Zealand. I've had instruments here from the UK, Canada, everywhere, pretty much Mexico. I've had them from South America. I've had them from everywhere. It's crazy, that it's been like it is. Steve Shane, will you please demonstrate what you mean by vibrating your hands? Okay, I did that at the beginning. That vibrator is on the products I use now. I would, if you are having hand pain, especially this basal pain, for me it relaxes it. And this is only $19.99, so it's not going to cost you a lot to try it. It might work for you. While we're on the health subjects there, I have put out the video a couple of times. It's been a long time ago about the kidney pain and the way you get rid of your kidney stones. I swear by that. I stand by it. It works. And I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of comments and emails from people telling me how well that works. And they are just so thankful that I showed them how to get rid of their kidney stones. And I'm telling you, it works. So I'm not saying it works on everybody under every circumstance, but I'm saying it's going to probably work on about 9 out of 10 people at least. And the reason is because I'm getting all these feedback back that, thank you. God, nobody ever told us to do that before, you know? And all it is if you don't know, well, go look up the video, just type in RSW kidney stone, you'll find it. And I call it the Rosa maneuver. I thought I'm going to name it after me. If I'm going to, they've got the Heimlich maneuver, you might as well have the Rosa maneuver. And all I do is I get on my knees in front of the couch and I just lay my arms out like this and keep my back flat with my head laying on the couch. And I'll turn my head side to side either way, just whatever's the most comfortable, because when you have a kidney stone, it hurts. I've done this at least a dozen times, probably more than that, and it gets rid of it like that. Gets rid of it like that. When I first discovered this, it was totally by accident. The first one, I've had a lot of kidney stones prior to my discovering this, you understand, and they last for an hour to, one of them lasted 2 weeks. And, 3-4 hours is not uncommon at all for them to last. Well, I had this kidney stone for about 2 hours, and it was really painful. So then I was just looking for some comfortable position. I wasn't really trying to get rid of it necessarily, just a comfortable position. So I just got down on my knees and I laid my head down on there. And within about 10 seconds, it went away. And I went, oh, you can tell when it goes away. It just passes. And it's like, oh, it's just such a relief. It's just like it's almost like the blood flows back to your system or something, you just feel this relief. And I went, wow, that worked. Well, 3 or 4 weeks later, a month later, I don't know how long it was, I had another kidney stone. And it lasted about an hour this time, and then I thought, you know what? The last time I got down on my knees and did that, it went away. I'm just going to try that again. So I went over there and laid down, got 10 seconds later, it went away. I've done it at least a dozen times since then, and every single time it goes away like that. And then I've had all these emails from people telling me it works for them too. So check it out. If you get kidney stones, check it out. It might work for you. It just works. Do the Rosa maneuver, and be sure you call it that. I want to be famous for something. Okay, moving on. We're down to the last two on this. Kim Wilford, on the first mandolin you made, can you please play Mandolin Wine? I don't know. I'll give it a try, but I doubt it. Honestly, I doubt I can do it, but I'm going to give it a try. I don't even know if I remember how. Honestly, this is a tune that I played for the recording, and honestly, if the band's ever played it 3 times since, that's a lot, and that was 25, 30 years ago. So, honestly, we never play this, and I don't ever play it. I have also had the same comment that you said, that it's their favorite tune. I've heard that from a lot of people. One of the guys that used to record here all the time just loved that tune and always liked for me to play it on the big stereo system. I don't know if I can do it. I'll try. Can't really do it very good anymore. I wrote that, we were at a winery in Herman, Missouri, back in the early 80s, I guess, and maybe late 80s. and we were playing there, and we had time to kill in between sets. And I just started monkeying around, and I wrote that little melody, and then I said, well, heck, I'm going to call it Mandolin Wine, since we're at the winery here. And so that's what I called it. For those of you keeping score, it's A minor, D minor, E, and a G. The G is the 7 chord. So it goes da 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 E, A minor, minor, D minor, A minor, E, A minor. And so it does that over again, and then when that comes to that syncopated part, it's going to the G. It goes G, A minor, E. I can't really. It's been so long since we did it. I swear to you, I know it's been 25, 30 years since I played that.
Yeah, she heard it.
Woo! James Fristad just gave us a super chat. Thank you so very, very much.
Yeah, the next commented her. She heard it.
Kim, beautiful, she said. Well, thank you, Kim. I wish I could do it better for you. I really do, but that's about all I got these days. And it's just getting harder and harder every day. It really is. Let's see. I think that was the last comment. We're already into this. I said today might go 2 hours. We're into it exactly 2 hours already. Boy, I ought to cut it off. I'm going to just read down through here, skim real quick. Thoughts on Magi fiddles. I don't have any thoughts on those, unfortunately. Sorry, I don't know anything about them, really. Heard a Rosa mandolin being played in the Clara Lynch band. Tone cut through clean. If that's the case, and I don't know whose mandolin that is, or if that's the case. I don't know if that's was one of my mandolins or not for sure, but it may have been. It could have been that guy that Joe loaned his mandolin to, because he loaned it to to the fiddle player that was in Doyle's band at the time, and then that guy played the mandolin on those CDs that are being sold at the Cracker Barrels and all that. So I don't know. I can't keep it up. I can't keep up with me, let alone all that other stuff. He said, that first guitar you built sounds a lot better than a Gibson. That was Zappa. Thank you, Zappa. Appreciate it. Paul Lanier says, the Chocolate Story is a great series. Wonderful work. Thank you. Yeah, if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen the Chocolate series, please watch it. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. And especially at the end, it gets so emotional because the girl wrote the most beautiful letter you'll ever want to hear. It was just beautiful. Gordon Bartlett, of all the instruments not in your hands, which would you like to have back? Well, all of them. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to have a bunch of them back. I'd like to have all of them. Man, yeah. I wished I wouldn't have had to sell any of them, honestly. It was hard to sell them.
We already did that.
Oh, the banjo joke. We already did that one. Let's see. I'm just trying to scroll through as quick as I can just to hit the highlights here. Jeff Purris says, we'll keep watching you. You can't get rid of us that easily. Well, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I do, like I said, I don't plan to change really anything other than the fact I'm just not going to be working on instruments. I'm planning to keep putting out videos. there will probably still be some minor instrument content one way or another. Like if a close friend has a problem with an instrument, I'll probably still fix it. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. But I'm not going to be doing it as a business. So you'll still see stuff probably. I mean, like if this guy says, look, my grandpa's fiddle broke again. Can you fix it? And I said, no, because you fixed it last time with high glue. I'm not going to do it. What's the best way to play a banjo with, it says, with a Stanley knife?
Yeah.
Okay. Matt Tommen, Mr. Rosa, why do they call the top of a guitar the top and not the front of the guitar? Well, that's a good question. You can ponder that one for a while. I'll just let you ponder that one. No more saddles, Ed says. I didn't say that. I never said that. I just said I'm not working on instruments anymore. But I honestly, the saddle thing may slow down too. Let's see, Gordon Santaniello, he's the one who gave me that super chat first, and I thank you again there very much, Doug. I read one person's name and then I read Santaniello. I meant Doug Santaniello. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it very much. The username here, Black Jack Guitar, I guess is what that stands for. Jerry, any word on the fiber internet? No, I still haven't heard from those guys. I called them, left them a message, and they haven't called me back, and I didn't call them again. I should. That's a good idea. Maybe I'll try calling them today if I can remember. My problem is remembering to do this stuff. I got so much stuff going on, I can't keep it straight. Wow, there's a lot of comments out there. And James Freestad, he gave me a super chat, says, here's to your retirement. Thank you very much. Clyde Lewis gave me a super chat. Thank you so very, very much, guys. I really, really do appreciate it. Mitzi Oden, will you still do your vlogs? Yes, I will, Mitzi. Thank you very much. And that is the bottom. We are done officially, 2 hours and 11 minutes. Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you so very, very, very much. I really do mean it from the bottom of my heart. You've always been so super kind to me and so wonderful. My comments on the whole don't reflect the comments that you see throughout YouTube. I mean, I get an occasional jerk once in a while, but most of the time my commenters are super, super nice. And my most videos have got a 99 plus positive comment rating. So I really do appreciate that. 2 last comments came in here. Steve says, I am repairing a vintage no-name A-style mandolin I found for free. The inside braces for both top and bottom need to be replaced. What type of wood and grain direction is best for this? You'd want to use quarter sawed spruce or either that or quarter sawed western cedar or quarter sawed redwood. Either of those would work. I would try to make it out of whatever kind of wood the top is made out of. So if it's spruce, then I would use spruce. If it's redwood, I'd use redwood.
Thanks, Zappa.
Zappa, best way to play banjo is claw hammer style with a claw hammer. That's a good one. I like that one. I hadn't heard that one before, but it makes sense. And anything that makes sense, you know me, I'm all about common sense. So, all right, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. We will see you Monday, if not before.